Hey everyone, it's Mariana, and today I am finally going to be talking about everything that I watched in January. I'm starting with TV series, not too much going on here because for the past month and a half I've been really focusing on catching up on 2018 movies that I've missed, but the first series that I finished in January was the Ted Bundy tapes, which is a 4-part miniseries on Netflix, obviously about Ted Bundy. I do want to preface this by saying that this is the first in-depth thing I watched or read about Ted Bundy, so I can't really speak for how much new material is in this documentary miniseries, but after watching it, I don't really think I need to watch more or read anything else about Ted Bundy unless there is some drastically new information that comes up, which I doubt. But yeah, this was a pretty all-encompassing, very informative series about this horrible person. This was definitely very well made, and the interviews are absolutely chilling. The whole thing is just so creepy, but it is presented very well. I did really like how they had interviews with Ted Bundy and his own words against what other people were saying who knew him or encountered him in real life, and that was an interesting kind of contrast as far as how he viewed himself and how he actually came off to other people. Basically, there is a lot of relevant footage and interviews, and if you want to watch something about Ted Bundy that is going to really inform you, I think this is a very good miniseries to watch. However, I kind of struggle with this whole concept because Ted Bundy really craved attention, particularly media attention, and I went into watching this not really knowing this. I didn't know much about him aside from the fact that he is a serial killer, but knowing that, it just kind of makes me feel very uneasy participating in watching something about him because this is what he would have wanted. There's just something very wrong with the fact that we keep giving this person attention that he actually wanted, and I guess I am part of the problem because I did watch the miniseries. Even though I didn't really know that was a thing, it's still not really a unique motivation for serial killers. I am pretty conflicted about this just on a personal level, but if we're taking that out of the equation and just judging this as a documentary miniseries, I think it is very good, so I would give it 4 out of 5 just as a documentary. The other series that I finished was Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. This is also on Netflix, and I'm not going to lie, the reason I even started watching this was because of the whole controversy on the internet, particularly on Twitter, about getting rid of books. As you can imagine, I follow a lot of booktubers, and I have been hearing nonstop about this controversial thing that she says about getting rid of books. I've heard some people say, or have rather seen some people say on Twitter, that she said to only keep 30 books and all of that, and I wanted to know what the fuss was all about, so I watched it, and I think we're overreacting a little bit. Yes, there are a couple of times where she talks about getting rid of books and potentially considering only keeping the books that you want to kind of take into the future with you and the books that would be useful in the future. And I think that's fine for some people. Let's not forget that the whole thing behind her method is keeping things that bring you joy. And there are quite a few times during this series that she mentions that you shouldn't focus on getting rid of things and rather focus on what things you want to take with you into the future. So if you want to take 300, 400, 500 books with you into the future, I don't think that's a problem. I also never heard her say that you should get rid of all of your books and only keep the books that you haven't read, only keep 30 of them or anything like that. I think people are, like I said, overreacting to the whole thing. But aside from that, this was kind of a fun show to watch, especially if you're looking for some background stuff to put on the TV. I personally find shows about cleaning up and organizing very inspiring because then it makes me want to organize and get rid of old stuff that I don't use. So I did really like it. There's nothing really crazy special about it. If you've heard of her method before, she's really not going to surprise you. outside of showing you some cool techniques as far as folding or maybe some things about organization that she has suggestions for that are very specific. But other than that, it's, you know, if you like those types of shows where people organize stuff and do kind of a makeover of your house, then you'll like this. If you're not into it, you probably won't find anything groundbreaking there. So I would probably give it 3.5 or 4 out of 5 stars, depending on whether you're into this or not. I would definitely watch season 2 if they ever came out with season 2, but yeah, probably closer to 3.5 out of 5. Other than that, I have started watching Kingdom and Maniac, both on Netflix. As you can tell, I'm trying to get through my Netflix queue right now, which is never going to happen, but you know, at least make a dent. I'm enjoying both of them, of course. I will hopefully be talking about them in my February wrap up because I don't know if I'll finish them. I really don't, because I'm focused on rewatching Game of Thrones right now, which is another show that I guess I'm watching, but that's nothing new. I watch Game of Thrones. What else is new? But yeah, absolutely enjoying both of these shows. Really excited to see where they're going and how they end. And hopefully we'll talk about them soon. Moving on to Letterboxd for all of my movie watching for January. This has been a pretty busy month, as you will see. So the first movie that I watched in January was Avengers: Infinity War. Finally, I got to this movie, and I have to say, I really, really did enjoy it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I'm going to have to join in with everyone who's been saying that Thanos is a really good villain and he's interesting to watch. 100% agree with that. I am very interested to see how they're going to wrap all of this up in Endgame, because the ending of this was pretty drastic, to say the least. Let's just put it that way, in case someone other than me has taken a really long time to watch Infinity War. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely very excited to see Endgame, which I did not think I would be saying. Ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I watched Leave No Trace, which didn't quite hit me as much as I expected it to. It wasn't really my kind of movie, and I found it to be a little bit repetitive, but I am glad that I watched it. And it is a good kind of subtle drama. I do agree with comparisons to Captain Fantastic on this one, even though the tones are quite different, and in the end, the kind of message and motivation behind everything is quite different. But thought this was pretty good. Gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Wish I loved it as much as other people did. Then I watched 8th Grade, which I did really, really like. I thought it was really funny and generally spot on, even though obviously this isn't my generation, so I can't quite relate to everything that's going on in this movie. I think it captured the spirit of growing up and just the struggles of being a teenager. I did find it to be occasionally depressing, just because it seems like it's harder to be a teenager these days than it was when I was growing up. Maybe I was just oblivious to things. I'm not sure, but it is a really, really good movie, and I would definitely recommend it, especially if you like coming of age stories. Ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Searching, which I absolutely loved. It was such a good film. You can hear me talk about it a little bit in my top movies of 2018 video. If you haven't seen that, I will leave that link down below. But yeah, it was great. It was so much better than I thought it would be. Such a good thriller that uses the gimmick of presenting everything on a screen really, really well. I don't really want to get into it too much. I think it's fun to kind of discover what happens as you watch it, but basically it's a mystery thriller about a father searching for his daughter who has mysteriously disappeared. If you haven't seen Searching because you think it looks like Unfriended, give it a try. Most likely you're going to love it. I ended up giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Roma, which is another movie I did talk about in my top movies of 2018 video. And though I did really, really like this film, I mean, it is gorgeous. The cinematography is absolutely stunning. The visual storytelling is just out of this world, and all of that, I mean, it's getting a lot of praise, and I think it deserves most of it. However, for me, this was lacking character development and character depth in general. I am somebody who loves great characters and will pick character-driven stories over plot-driven stories. This was kind of neither. It was more of a nostalgia slash visual storytelling type of story where nothing happens but everything happens. And if you're into that, you're going to absolutely love Roma. Definitely check it out regardless, because it is worth watching. It is a work of art as far as cinema goes. But if you're like me and you need great characters, I think you're going to find this a little bit underwhelming. Just a little bit. Still a great film, but could have been even better. So that's why I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Cam, which wasn't even on my radar, to be honest, but it surprised the hell out of me because it is such an interesting and unexpected thriller. I think anyone with any kind of online presence will find this at least somewhat relatable, because this does revolve around a cam girl who seems to be dealing with a case of very interesting identity theft. The payoff for me was kind of the weakest point of the movie. I think getting there was much more interesting than where we actually got at the end. The climax and the resolution of this movie just really didn't do it for me, unfortunately. But I still did enjoy it quite a bit, and I would recommend it if you want to see a slightly under the radar, different kind of mystery thriller. I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I watched The Endless, which is about 2 brothers who have left a cult years ago, and then now they are maybe going back to it for certain reasons. I enjoyed the idea of this much more than the actual movie. I thought the movie was actually pretty drawn out, and calling it a horror film, I think, is a bit of a stretch. While I wasn't really ever bored watching The Endless, I will say that I felt like it needed to be either edited down, and that would have worked better for it, or it needed more to it to warrant the runtime, because it did really feel drawn out to me. Still, I did love the idea, and the disturbing parts of it were definitely unsettling, so I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I doubt I'll be watching this one again. Then I watched The Guilty, which is a Danish one-location thriller, and I wished I would have talked about it in my top movies of 2018 video, but it kind of got pushed out by other movies. But this movie is a really, really good thriller, even though it all takes place on phone calls. And those are the most stressful phone calls you will ever watch. This movie I was glued to the screen. I was just so invested in everything that was going on. And it's kind of as disturbing as your imagination lets it be, because they're talking about things and your mind does the work. And if you're the kind of person who just imagines the worst, this movie is just going to unsettle you so much. Basically, the lead character is a dispatcher at an emergency center, and he receives a call from a woman who appears to have been kidnapped. And from then on, he tries to kind of solve or help solve what's going on. And it is just so fascinating. It is a crazy story, and it is a crazy thriller, and it was very, very stressful. And one of the best one-location thrillers, to be honest, that I've ever seen. So check it out. I highly recommend it. Ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. After that, I saw Sorry to Bother You, which was a very, very, very strange experience. Now, I will admit, I am not someone who is a fan of absurdist stuff, absurdist films, or absurdist literature. So to me, this got too weird. I think it's going to work much better for some people who are more interested in that type of stuff. If you're not that kind of person, you will think this movie is a little too weird. It is a really good movie. There's a lot to unpack here. There are a lot of interesting things that are kind of coming together in this film. It's basically about this guy who figures out a way to be successful as a telemarketer, and where it ends up is just strange. It's just off the wall completely. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, even though it doesn't sound like I really enjoyed it that much. I did enjoy most of it until it got too weird, and I did get a lot out of it in general, so it is absolutely worth a watch, but just be prepared. It gets pretty absurd. Then I watched Blind Spotting, which I absolutely loved. It's about 2 friends who grew up together. One is trying to get through his last days of parole. The other one is clearly trouble. And this movie was just great. I enjoyed it so much. It has such a great balance of humor and more serious stuff. It's shot really well. It's acted really well. I talked about it in my top movies of 2018. I'm honestly surprised more people aren't talking about it, because this really is a film that needs to be seen. And it's really a shame that people aren't giving this one a chance. I would highly, highly suggest you watch this. Ended up giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then another 4.5 out of 5 film for me, Mission Impossible Fallout. I was so sure I got overhyped for this movie. And even though I am a big fan of the Mission Impossible franchise, you guys know I'm not really into franchises too much, but this is one that I really, really love and I always find very entertaining. And I thought there's no way it could be as good as people say it is. And generally, I mean, come on, how many movies are you going to do and they're going to be good? But this one, it's great. It's as great as everyone says it is. The action is fantastic. Tom Cruise is just insane. This guy is doing stuff and he shouldn't be doing that at his age. The story was a tad bit convoluted to me, but whatever, who cares? This was really entertaining. It looked really great. It was exactly what a great Mission Impossible movie needs to be, and I had so much fun watching it. Sign me up for whatever Mission Impossible 7, 8, 15, I'll be there. Plus, this movie has a helicopter chase. Like, where else are you going to see that? That's just crazy and worth seeing on its own. But yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars. After that, I saw Burning. I'm on a really good streak here, as you can tell. Another 4.5 movie for me, because Burning, that was something else. Actually, I think I'm going to review this movie, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. It is worth the hype. I'm so surprised that it did not get nominated for Best Foreign Film, but then Oscars are getting crazier and crazier every year, so, I don't know why I'm even surprised. But yeah, Burning is great. It was my favorite foreign language film of 2018 until I saw Cold War, and then it was over. It was over for all of the movies, because Cold War is it's just too good. It's amazing. It's another movie I'm reviewing, and it is one of those movies that I talked about in my top movies of 2018 video. Then I saw The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is a Coen Brothers film. It's an anthology film that is a bunch of Western stories put into one movie. They're very different with quite different themes to them. And to be honest, it didn't really work for me, unfortunately. I am not a huge fan of Westerns. You guys may know that already. So that was already kind of a sign that I wasn't going to love this, but some of these stories they were just not for me. There were a couple that I really did enjoy, but for the most part, the not for me is the main thing I can say about this movie. It was shot really beautifully and I appreciate the effort, and because I enjoyed a few stories, I did end up giving it 3 out of 5, but it's just not my cup of tea, so I don't think I'm the best person to talk about this movie. Then I watched Abducted in Plain Sight, which is a documentary on Netflix, and it is absolutely one of the most disturbing and gross things that I've seen in my entire life. I was so disgusted and so shocked watching this thing. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Just go watch it on Netflix and then talk to me, because it is an abduction story about a girl who was abducted by a family friend, but there's so much going on there that just blows my mind, and I don't understand how this could have possibly happened and kept happening. It's crazy. I gave it 4 out of 5 because it is a well put together documentary, but it is a tough watch. And you're just going to be sitting there thinking, what the hell and what is wrong with these parents. Then I watched Tully, which of course has a fantastic performance from Charlize Theron. She plays a mother who has a third child and kind of has a really rough time adjusting to that until she gets a night nanny, and then things get a little bit better for her. But I was not sold on where the story ended up going. That kind of ruined the movie for me. I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars because I did really enjoy the performances from Charlize Theron, as I mentioned, and Mackenzie Davis. And there were good things about this movie for quite a bit of it. I was enjoying it, but then as it started heading down a certain direction, and from that point on, it kind of lost me because I could see where it was going and I did not like that. So 3.5 out of 5 stars. I would recommend watching it if you're interested in it, but I think the ending is going to be a hit or miss for a lot of people. I don't think you're going to be neutral on this ending. It's either really going to work for you or it's not going to work for you at all. Then I watched The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which is a beautifully heartfelt and subtle film about these kids being sent to conversion therapy center, and this topic in general is very heartbreaking. So as you can imagine, the story itself is heartbreaking. It doesn't go overboard. It doesn't really try to manipulate you emotionally like a lot of films do that kind of touch this topic. I really appreciated that this one didn't. And the performance from Chloe Grace Moretz is just outstanding. It is her career best performance, so it's worth watching just even for that. But apparently not a lot of people enjoyed this one, because I did get some comments on this saying that this wasn't really worth the good reviews that it's been getting, which surprises me. I thought it was a really good movie, so I personally would recommend it. I think you should check it out, but apparently controversial opinion here, but I did really like it, so I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I watched Fire, which is one of the 2 documentaries about the Fyre Fest that never actually came to fruition. I think it's a very popular topic right now. A lot of people talking about this, and this is a crazy story. This is the Netflix documentary that I watched, and it is better than the Hulu documentary, but they kind of fill in each other's gaps, so it's worth watching both of them. It's not particularly anything groundbreaking, but if you do want to know more about the Fyre Fest and how it's a huge dumpster fire, then you should definitely watch it because it's crazy, and what people tried to pull is absolutely crazy. I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars because it was very enjoyable, at least for me, but I, at the same time, don't really think it's a groundbreaking documentary. So entertaining, but nothing out of this world. Then I watched Polar with Mads Mikkelsen, which was incredibly bad. If you want to see how bad an assassin movie can be, you should check out, like, I don't know, 10 minutes of this and then just quit, because gosh, I do not recommend this movie. It was awful. I hated everything about it, and I really think that Mads Mikkelsen deserves better movies than this. Even the color grading was awful in this movie. It was just hurting my eyes, so I would not recommend it, obviously. It's on Netflix, though, if you want to see how bad it is. Last, but certainly not least, BlacKkKlansman. Really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a crazy story, especially since it's apparently a true story. I did not know this was a true story going in, but yeah, what a story. It's absolutely insane. And it is, as you probably already know, about a Black police officer who becomes a member of the KKK. Apparently that happened. This is also one of those movies that does a really good job balancing the humor and the more serious stuff. And I love that about 2018 in general, because there were quite a few movies like that. The performances are really good, particularly Denzel Washington's son is really great in his role. I don't really know if Adam Driver deserves that supporting actor nomination. He wasn't bad or anything, but I just didn't think that performance had that moment of, oh, okay, that's what he got nominated for. It was a really good performance, but it wasn't out of this world or anything. But yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. Absolutely would recommend it. I liked how it was stylized for the 70s, and yeah, ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. So that's it for everything I watched in January. Of course, as always, please let me know what you watched, what your favorites were, and what your recommendations are, all in the comments below, because I'm always looking for more movies to watch. If you enjoyed this video, which I hope you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!